Hiya and welcome to this week's episode of Inside Property Development, where I'm going to tell you exactly how I've managed to maintain a 100% track record at winning planning over the last 40 years. Now, a lot of those applications I've had to win at appeal, but I've always generally known that before I've even started, and actually winning at appeal has been part of my planning strategy. And in fact, having a planning strategy before you even start is a big part of the answer to how I've got 100% planning track record still to this day. So, but before I jump into that, it might be worth telling you sort of how I came to perhaps this realization or learn what I learned. So when I first started off many years ago doing small refurbs and things like that, slowly building up to slightly bigger deals, splitting houses into flats, and then started to see little developments and things popping up in my little patch where I was doing stuff that hadn't been for sale on the market or anything like that. So these were proper off-market deals, and that was a real eye-opener. I all of a sudden realised that there was a way of finding deals without waiting for them to be on the market. But also, importantly, these were things where people were getting planning and adding planning value. So that was a real eye-opener. So for me, I thought, wow, actually, I'm going to start doing that. It seemed like the natural progression to me, you know, small refurbs to bigger refurbs to converting houses into flats and things like that. New build and planning applications seemed like the logical next step. So I bought a house with a corner plot. The house was a bit of a wreck, and there was a plot of land on the corner. The plan was to do the house up, submit a planning application to get a house on the side. So bought the site, bought the house, started doing it up, submitted a planning application. This was in, I think, 1986, so a long time ago now, right? Just a single attached house on the side. Submitted the planning application. Did quite a lot of research actually, reading the policy and stuff like that. Thought I was doing all the right stuff. Submitted the application. The planners said that they were going to refuse it for a whole load of reasons. I basically shit myself and withdrew the application because I didn't want to get a refusal. Yeah. Now, I mean, in a lot of ways, actually, that was probably the right thing to do, because you don't really want refusals on your sites if you can help it. Sites with refusals can sometimes get a bit blighted, particularly if the wrong thing has been said or done during the planning application process. Yeah, so it is possible to apply for the wrong thing, say or do certain things during that first application process, and then get refused, and all of that causes you or someone else a lot of problems in the future. Yeah, so I panicked, withdrew the planning application, so that I didn't get a refusal on that bit of land. What that made me realise is, right, well, shit, right, okay, there's a lot more about this. Why was I going to get refused? What does it all mean? What do I need to know? What do I need to learn? What do I need to understand? So that sent me off on a whole tangent learning about planning. So for me, if you've been watching this podcast for any time, you will have heard this already. If you haven't, go back and watch the episode where we talk about how I got started. One of the things I talk about there is like ADHD, which is something I discovered about a year ago that I've got, which one of the things that means is people with ADHD can be hyper-focused when they find stuff that they really get into. I got massively into property development, was hyper-focused on every aspect of it, and wanted to understand and know it all inside out. So once I realised planning was so important, rather than just try to get a consultant or someone else to do it for me, I really wanted to know it and understand it myself. So I started going to planning committees. I started reading planning reports. I got all of the planning textbooks, real, sort of dense, a lot of it fairly boring stuff to a lot of people, but I was fascinated by it, right? So I started to learn a lot about planning. because I'd come also to realise just how important it is when it comes to property development. It really is about land and planning. Of course, yes, we need to build things, we need to know how to build things, but land and planning, which are interrelated, is really where the sort of the value gets added. So I decided to, learn as much as possible about it, and I've stayed on that path and literally made sort of being good at planning my main USP for my whole career. Really is. So basically, I'm a developer. I am a chartered planning and development surveyor as well now. But I discovered very early on, or realised very early on, just how important planning was. So got quite good at that. And that is something that I would highly advise you to do as well for yourself, because it's that allows you to spot angles and opportunities and realise things and think, well, actually, if I might be able to do this and this because I know about a certain policy or a certain bit of case law or something like that. Yeah. So without a shadow of a doubt, knowing a lot about planning is massively advantageous to a developer, and that is really how I've managed to maintain a 100% planning track record. I learned a lot about planning. I know a lot about planning. I am not overly reliant on my consultants. I work with them. It's a collaborative team thing. So they might have an idea and I'll say, well, what about this? Or I might have an idea and they'll say, well, what about this? And then, between us all, we'll actually, particularly if you've got the best consultants, we'll come up with the thing that's going to give us the best chances of winning. And on top of that, I am and always have been very detailed. So when it comes to submitting planning, my whole business really, my whole model really has been to reverse engineer everything, look and think about everything that could go wrong, particularly when it comes to submitting a planning application. What are the objections going to be? Who's going to object? Why might they object? What might they say? What does all the policy say? Local policy, national policy, recent appeal decisions, case law. Look at every little thing and see about how that might apply to your site, and then work out, okay, if and when that gets raised, how am I going to deal with it? Think about if and when I get refused, how am I going to deal with that refusal? How am I going to deal with that appeal? Think about what are all the objections and issues likely to be, and either design them away or address them in your planning application. What you don't want to do is be reactive. That's what lots and lots of people do. They don't think these things through. They'll submit a planning application. The planners or one of the statutory consultees will come back and say a whole load of stuff, and then people find themselves in a position where they're like, oh shit, we have to change things in order to deal with that, or we can't change things, and that's now become a big problem. Yeah. By understanding all of the things that might come up before they come up, and addressing them at the application and design stage, that's how you deal with things. So basically, you end up, the real way to think about this is you have to do the planner's job for them and give them all of the answers and all of the information in order for them to make the right decision. And of course, the right decision means approving your planning application. And when you do that, the real name of the game is you've got to make it, the planners have got to know that, well, this person is really on it. It's going to be harder for me to it's going to be more work for me involved in refusing this application than there actually is in consenting it. So I'm going to have to take the easy option and consent it because the bloke's ticked all the boxes. Even if I do refuse it and we end up at appeal, we're probably going to win. We're probably going to lose at appeal. Therefore, let's take the easy option and give them a consent. So that's the general gist of what you've got to do. You've got to be super detailed, reverse engineer everything, think of all the possible issues and objections, address them before you've even started, and do the planner's job for them. That is the simple answer, but of course it's not simple. There's a lot of work in knowledge required in doing that. But of course, what is the alternative? half do it or 90% do it and then get refused, and then you're on the back foot, and then you get refused, and if you do it the wrong way, you even get your appeal refused, and then you're back to a whole brand new planning application again. And what with the cost of all of these things today, there really is, you don't want to be doing, it's hard enough doing stuff once, you don't want to be doing it twice. So that's the answer. So how do you do all that? Well, I mean, of course, you've and I've mentioned this many times before, you've got to find and work with the very best experts and professional team, but you can't leave it just to them. Now, unless you're some massive organisation with a load of experts in-house, then the finance is a bit different. But otherwise, you do need to learn and understand quite a lot of this stuff, well, as much of it as possible, yourself, in order to spot the angles, the opportunities and the pitfalls at an early stage, so you can design around them and make sure they don't happen. So unfortunately, really, this isn't really a business that you can sort of do on the cheap or just have a little bit of a go at and not really have the right attitude or knowledge. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, unfortunately, learning in this business can be slow, expensive, and very dangerous. You don't want to be making mistakes with your planning applications just because it's all so costly. And very often, depending on what type of deals you're doing, most of my deals are either subject to planning deals or mostly option agreements, actually, which means they'll be for a period of time. You can't afford to be taking forever to get planning, because otherwise you're going to run out of time and you're going to lose the deal. So that's it. Basically, you do need to know this stuff. You do need to learn it yourself. Now, interestingly, if you want to test your knowledge and see how much you know yourself, there'll be a link around here somewhere to our Development Insider scorecard, which will basically take you through the key stages, stuff you need to know, from identifying sites, driving the planning process, securing deals, quickly coming up with the right scheme, etc., etc. It's a really useful thing to do. One, you can test yourself to see where you are and how well you score. But it's broken down into a number of different areas. So you'll be able to find out where, okay, I'm really good at that bit. Maybe there's a little bit of a gap here. That's the stuff I need to know more about. So you can then go away, get that knowledge, read up, watch this stuff, and fill the gaps, basically, which is really what it's all about. So I don't think there is too much more to say than that. Short answer, how do I maintain 100% planning track record? By being all over all of the detail, doing the planner's job for them, so they're making their life easy and making it easier for them to approve me than it is for them to refuse me. That's the answer. Hopefully that's been of some use. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also go and have a little play with the scorecard to see how you get on there. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Inside Property Development. Please remember to like and subscribe. Do join us every week, where we'll be speaking to house builders, developers, experts, planners, and everyone involved in trying to get more much needed housing created the right way. We'll learn together how we can collaborate rather than fight, and by working together, we can all help create better places, spaces and homes, and a much more beautiful world.